We don't serve your type here. People like you waste our time. That's what Preston Crownley told Corporal Tristan Beckford before having him thrown out of the dealership while still in full Queen's Guard uniform. If you've got a problem, he added, go cry to your precious prince. 24 hours later, that's exactly what happened. And who walked in next left? The entire showroom frozen. But before we reveal what happened next, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. The morning light filtered through the curtains of Corporal Tristan Beckford's modest apartment. At precisely 5:30 a.m., his eyes opened, a habit formed through 12 years of military discipline that even his rare day off couldn't break. Tristan's walls displayed a life of service and passion. Between military commendations hung vintage automobile sketches. Pride of place was a faded photograph of his grandfather, with a partially restored Jaguar ape from 1972. A true work of art isn't just owned. His grandfather had told him, it's understood, respected. Those words had shaped both his love for cars and his approach to life. Glancing at his savings statement, Tristan confirmed the figure, £58,000, enough for a down payment after 7 years of careful budgeting. Today, he would visit Crownley Motors, London's most prestigious vintage car dealership. Tristan paused before the mirror, considering his attire. Something about this milestone called for the uniform that had become part of his identity. It's who I am, he told his reflection, and retrieved his ceremonial uniform. Crownley Motors appeared on Berkeley Square, like a temple to automotive excess. Taking a deep breath, Tristan pushed through the revolving doors. The interior resembled a museum, more than a dealership. Polished marble floors reflected the warm lighting from crystal chandeliers. Each vehicle sat on a slightly raised platform, their paintwork gleaming under perfectly positioned spotlights. His entrance had not gone unnoticed. Several customers turned, their expressions ranging from surprise to curiosity. Some whispered excitedly, pointing discreetly. A middle-aged couple nudged each other, the woman whispering, "Is that a real Queen's Guard?" A young boy tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, look, can I take a picture with him?" Tristan moved further into the showroom, aware of the subtle shift in atmosphere his uniform had created. An elderly gentleman gave him a respectful nod that Tristan returned with a slight inclination of his head. 3 salespeople in tailored suits stood attending to customers. A fourth, a young man with an eager expression, noticed Tristan and took a half-step toward him, before a sharp look from across the room froze him in place. Tristan approached the reception desk where a perfectly coiffed woman was typing. "Good morning," he said politely. "I was hoping to speak with someone about your classic car collection." The receptionist looked up, her professional smile faltering as she took in his uniform. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" "I don't know. I was hoping it might be possible to speak with someone today." Her eyes flickered to a man across the room. "I'll see if anyone is available. Your name, please." "Corporal Tristan Beckford, Queen's Guard." She made a show of checking a calendar. "I'm afraid our sales consultants are fully booked today. Perhaps you could come back another time." Her tone suggested that another time meant in different attire. "I understand it's busy. I'm happy to wait," Tristan replied with practiced patience. As he moved away from the desk, he observed 2 new customers being immediately greeted by salespeople who had been fully booked moments earlier. Left to his own devices, Tristan began to explore the showroom. In the vintage section, he found what he had come to see, a selection of the finest British classics, and there was a sight that made his breath catch. A 1964 Jaguar E-Type Roadster identical to the one in his grandfather's photograph, its British racing green paintwork gleaming under the lights. As if drawn by a magnet, Tristan moved toward it, unaware that his path was being closely monitored from across the showroom. Preston Crownley, the heir to the Crownline Motors empire, adjusted his bespoke suit jacket as he intercepted a salesperson heading in Tristan's direction. "I'll handle this one, James," Preston said quietly. "We don't need to waste resources on tourists." Tristan studied the curves of the E-Type, mentally comparing it to his grandfather's photographs. The craftsmanship was exquisite, a perfect restoration with subtle modern improvements only a true enthusiast would recognize. "It's got the 3.8L straight 6, came a voice from behind him. Tristan turned to find an older gentleman with kind eyes. "Triple SU carburetors, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't switch to the 4.2L until late '64. "You have a good eye, sir," Tristan replied. "This is the earlier 3.8 with the aluminum dash and the smaller tail lights that purists prefer." The man's eyebrows rose appreciatively. "You know your Jaguars, young man. Are you a collector?" "An enthusiast, sir. My grandfather was a mechanic who specialized in British sports cars." The man extended his hand. "Charles Wellington. That's my wife over there being shown something far too modern for my tastes." "Corporal Tristan Beckford. Queen's Guard, obviously." Wellington smiled. "I was Army myself years ago. Household cavalry." Their conversation was interrupted by Preston materializing beside them, his attention focused entirely on Wellington. "Sir Charles, I didn't realize you had arrived. I do apologize. Amanda should have notified me immediately." "No apologies necessary, young man," Wellington replied. "I was just having a fascinating conversation with Corporal Beckford here about this magnificent E-Type." Preston's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened as they flicked to Tristan. "How wonderful. However, I believe Mrs. Wellington was asking for you, Sir Charles. Something about that Mercedes she was considering." As Wellington walked away, Preston's demeanor changed instantly. "I don't know what you think you're doing," he said in a low voice, "but we don't appreciate time wasters in this establishment. I assure you, Mr. Crownley." "Preston Crownley. Mr. Crownley. I am here as a serious buyer." Preston made a show of looking Tristan up and down. "Really? Because it appears to me that you're here to attract attention to yourself. This isn't a tourist photo opportunity." From across the showroom, whispers traveled between customers. "Is that guardsman actually shopping? Can they afford these cars? My attire has nothing to do with my intentions." Tristan replied evenly. "I've saved for 7 years to purchase a vehicle like this E-Type. I'm prepared to discuss financing options today." Preston's laugh was short and dismissive. "This particular vehicle is priced at $135,000. Are you suggesting that a guardsman has that kind of buying power?" After being dismissed, Tristan continued exploring the showroom, eventually finding himself drawn back to the Jaguar. Without thinking, he reached out toward the door handle to admire the perfectly restored chrome work. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Preston's voice cut through the showroom. He strode toward Tristan, anger distorting his features. Nearby customers turned to watch. "Step away from the vehicle now." Preston's hand shot out, gripping Tristan's wrist. Tristan gently but firmly removed his arm from Preston's grasp. "I was simply admiring the craftsmanship, Mr. Crownley. As I mentioned earlier, I'm interested in purchasing an IPE." Preston laughed sharply. "Purchasing? Do you have any idea what this vehicle costs?" £135,000 for this particular example," Tristan replied calmly. "Though I'd argue it's slightly overpriced, given the non-original radio and the replacement hood latches, which aren't period correct for a '64 model." Preston's face wrinkled. "Oh, so you're an expert now. A palace guard who moonlights as a classic car authenticator." "My grandfather restored these for 30 years. Tristan said. "I grew up learning every component, every specification. This model has the Moss gearbox, with the synchro mesh on second, third and fourth, but not first. The engine produces 265 horsepower and can reach 150 miles per hour. Quite revolutionary for its time. A murmur of appreciation rippled through the onlookers. Someone whispered, "He really knows his stuff." Preston's expression darkened further. "Memorizing Wikipedia articles doesn't make you a customer, Corporal. This vehicle costs more than you'd make in 5 years of standing around the palace." "I've saved for 7 years," Tristan replied evenly. "I have £58,000 for a down payment, and financing arrangements prepared for the remainder." 58,000. Preston scoffed loudly. "That wouldn't cover the cost of the wheels and tires. This is a vehicle for people who understand value, not for people who dress up for tourists." Sir Charles Wellington stepped forward from the gathered crowd. "Young man, your behavior is appalling. This gentleman clearly knows these vehicles better than you do." Preston turned momentarily flustered. "Sir Charles, with all due respect, you don't understand the situation. We get these time wasters regularly. The only person playing pretend here seems to be you, Mr. Crownley," Wellington replied coldly. Preston's face contorted with rage before he regained his composure. "I appreciate your opinion, Sir Charles, but I'm responsible for running this business, and part of that responsibility includes identifying serious buyers." He turned back to Tristan. "Which you clearly are not." "I can assure you," Tristan began. "No, let me assure you of something," Preston interrupted, his voice rising. "People of your financial standing don't belong in establishments like this. I've spent my entire life around cars like these," Tristan said quietly. "I don't care if your grandfather was Enzo Ferrari himself." Preston snapped. "The fact remains that you walked in here in that ridiculous costume, thinking it would somehow give you special treatment." "This is not a costume," Tristan replied, his voice taking on the edge of command. "This is the uniform of the Queen's Guard, and I wear it with honor." "How quaint," Preston sneered. "Well, Your Majesty's toy soldier, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Security, please escort this person from the premises." 2 men in dark suits approached. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one said, not unkindly. "This is unnecessary," Tristan said. "I am perfectly capable of leaving on my own." "Then why haven't you?" Preston retorted. Sir Charles Wellington stepped forward again. "Mr. Crownley, this behavior is completely unacceptable. I shall be speaking with your father about this incident." Preston's confidence faltered momentarily at the mention of his father, but he recovered quickly. "My father understands the difference between serious buyers and tourists looking for photo opportunities." "Is your father here today?" Tristan asked. "My father is Reginald Crownley, the owner of Crownley Motors," Preston replied with a smirk. "And as his son and general manager, I speak with his full authority." As they began to escort him toward the exit, Preston couldn't resist a final barb. "If you have complaints about how real businesses operate, why don't you write to your puppet master, Prince? I'm sure he'll be devastated to hear you couldn't play with the expensive toys." Tristan's back remained straight, his steps measured and dignified as he marched toward the exit. "This is disgraceful," a woman muttered as he passed. At the door, one of the security guards spoke quietly. "Sorry about this, sir. Just doing our job." Tristan gave him a slight nod of understanding. As the glass doors closed behind him, he caught a final glimpse of the Jaguar Ipe, a dream temporarily deferred by prejudice and assumption. The barracks of the Queen's Guard stood in stark contrast to the opulence of Crownley Motors. Tristan entered his quarters, carefully removing his bearskin cap and placing it on its stand with practiced precision. He had just begun unfastening his tunic when a knock sounded at his door. "Enter," he called. Major Edmund Whitfield stepped into the room, his observant eyes immediately catching the tension in Tristan's movements. "Afternoon, Beckford," he said, Thought you were spending your day off at that car dealership you've been talking about for weeks. I did, sir, Tristan replied, continuing to remove his uniform with meticulous care. Must not have gone well then, Whitfield observed. You're doing that thing with your jaw, clenching it like you're about to bite through steel. Tristan paused. Just a disappointing experience, sir. Nothing worth discussing. Whitfield closed the door and leaned against it. In my experience, nothing worth discussing usually means exactly the opposite. What happened? Slowly, Tristan recounted the events at Crownley Motors, his voice dispassionate, as if delivering a mission report rather than a personal humiliation. Whitfield listened without interruption, his expression darkening progressively. When Tristan mentioned the puppet master Prince comment, Major Whitfield's eyes flash. So this Preston character publicly humiliated you while you were in full uniform, he says. Not just you, but the regiment and the crown. It was a private matter, sir. I shouldn't have worn the uniform off duty. Corporal Tristan Beckford replies. Nonsense. You have every right to wear it with pride. Write a formal report. I'll see it goes where it needs to. Tristan writes a precise, emotionless account. Whitfield quietly forwards it to a contact at Buckingham Palace. The next morning, car dealer Preston Crownley gets a call. Prince William will visit Crownley Motors to view their Jaguar I-Type. Preston basks in pride, orders flowers, security, a red carpet, and summons his father Reginald. At 11 a.m., Prince William arrives, with Tristan in full ceremonial uniform at his side. Inside, the prince admires the Jaguar, then notes that Corporal Beckford had already spotted non-original parts during his visit the previous day. The room goes still. As Tristan explains, he'd come as a potential buyer with a substantial down payment. But Preston mocked his uniform, judged his finances, insulted the royal family, and had him thrown out. Reginald is horrified. He forces his son to apologize to both Tristan and the prince, then offers Tristan the E-Type at a 30% discount. It's a generous offer, Tristan says, but I'll continue my search elsewhere. Principle matters more than a dream car. Outside, Prince William tells him, what impressed me most wasn't the disrespect you faced, but how you handled it. There's dignity in standing your ground without sinking to another's level. Tristan rides back to Buckingham Palace without the Jaguar, but with something far more valuable intact: the honor of his uniform, and the respect it silently commands.